Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Death By, where contestants will earn reps for their arguments for a chance to stand on top of the podium pedestal. I am your host, Lauren Kalil. Whoever I decide has the best argument through the final round will earn 30 seconds to talk about a topic of their choosing. Before we get to today's episode, we want to thank our sponsor, Garmin. I've been wearing Garmin for several years now, and I recently switched over to the Epix Pro Gen 2, and this thing has everything that you need to track your health, your fitness, even sports outside of CrossFit. With a 16-day battery life, up to 16 days, it doesn't matter how much or little I'm traveling. I rarely need to bring the charger for this, and it saves some extra room in all of the bags I bring. It'll help you stay true to your fitness goals, whether you're hitting a Metcon, a strength piece, hill running, or even, I know that some of the guys in this group are going to like this, it'll help you choose or give you suggestions onto which golf club you need while you're out on the course. If you want to give Garmin a try, just go ahead and click the link in our description. Now, on today's episode, we have the Chief Executive Officer at HWPO, Matt O'Keefe, affiliate owner and CrossFit analyst, Chase Ingraham with Get With The Programming, and the founder and head coach of Underdogs Athletics, Justin Cotler. Congratulations, everybody. We have successfully made it through. Everybody's alive here. And
I'm
nobody
impressed.
this.
I have post-semi blues. Yeah.
We wait all year for the in-person competition, and then we get 3 weeks, and now we have to wait 2 months.
I know. I don't know about you, but I am exhausted. It's an exhausting time, that's for sure.
All of the emotions. I'm sure we'll get into it, but let's play Death By into round number 1. Now that all the semifinals are complete, here's a question. Do you think that the spot allocations for qualifying spots were correct? If so, why? And if not, which region deserved more? Justin Cotler, we'll start with you.
I think the obvious answer to this is no. And that's unfortunate. I think especially in Europe, North America West and North America East, I think we saw some pretty incredible athletes who are right on the bubble, who aren't making it to the games. And that's not to say that, some of the other regions are not deserving, but I think if you stacked up the scores, taking away event 1, because obviously it's not comparable because of the different courses and different lengths of the 800 meters, which is supposed to be 800 meters, but in several cases it wasn't. I think if you stack up the rest of the scoring, it's pretty evident that we're going to be missing out on some pretty high level athletes at the games from those 3 semifinals. So I think, when we move forward, we need to look at that. It's something we need to address in the sport. I don't think the worldwide rankings, the way that they were presented to us this year, are in the right format or structure. And that needs to be revisited. And hopefully in the future, we can allocate a few more spots to those 3 semis.
2 points for Cotler. Matt O'Keefe, you're up next.
Yeah, I'd agree with Justin in a lot of ways. I think that, what are the solutions to that? Maybe it's more spots at the games to allow, I understand what we're doing, which is thriving areas, South America, for instance, we're giving more relevance, but the data is in your face when scores don't align comparatively to other markets. I mean, it's a tough, complex issue developmentally. We're trying to bring the sport along and globalize it more and more over time. But, I think some of it will play out. You do see that at the games. We do have that historical data where some of the regions we're speaking about don't stack up. Maybe we take 50 athletes to the games and cut after a day or two. to, you know, give that global stage to those different regions so we can develop further and create interest with kids in those regions because there's more opportunity. But right now, yeah, I think that it's obvious purely off of the data. This isn't emotional or anything against any of those regions. It's, you know, when you look at a workout that is, you know, formatted identically to the way it is in another region, and those times just don't stack up to those three bigs that Justin mentioned. I think, you know, it's an obvious yes, but there's ways that we can, you know, contribute globalizing the sport. Maybe it's expanding the games a little and having a cut.
50 and then cut. I like the idea. 3 points for O'Keefe. Chase?
Terrible idea.
Maybe
like,
logistically.
it's adding. This is the thing. Where it's like, oh, the college playoff goes to 4. Now it should be 8. Okay, well then when's the conversation of 16 and when's the conversation of 32? We're not going to keep pushing the line back. 40 is 40. 40 is fine. The things that actually need to change to improve the system we're in is to the system itself. The answer to your initial question is no. These spots were not allocated correctly. And the second part of that is no one deserves anything. 0. There are semifinals that earn these spots, and they earn them by a system which is based off performance. So deserve is out of the question. Some facts, some numbers, some data that we were talking about. I'll dive into that a little bit more. I'm just going to look at the women, right? Now, I'll lead this off. It's nothing personal, ladies. This is just you on a leaderboard, and I'm looking at the numbers. You look at Asia. They didn't deserve the 3rd spot. I took the 1st place finisher, Sahir Kaya. She would have got 12th in the West. 12th. They took 8. You take Olivia Kerstetter with her same run time. By the way, they ran a longer course in Asia. She's getting 3rd. She would have qualified out of there. And she didn't even make it out of the West. You go to Europe, who 100% earned more spots just because the way it shook out math-wise and the way you took out people and then put them in, which is the right call, but just not at the same time. Amelia Lundberg, who missed out by 1 spot, if I gave her just half her finish place in event 1, she still would have gotten 3rd place in Asia. And she missed the cut in Europe. You take Sahir Kaya, and she gets 12th in Europe, and she won the whole region. You look at South America, Amelia gets 3rd place again with giving her just a midway finish point in event 1. You take Victoria, who won, and she gets 14th in Europe. And I gave her a 10th place finish. That would have been better than what she normally did. The numbers show that the allocated spots were not correct. People got left out, and the spots that were earned weren't actually earned. They were given this year. Not deserved, not earned.
Don't you? Can I ask you a question, though, Farley? You're most connected to this, right? So, but, you know, there's the idea, too, that, you know, when we see this on a weekly basis, it's hard to measure location to location because of the competitive value, right? You know, racing against people in lanes, right? So, you know, you're talking about somebody that would have finished 12th. I'd say,
all right,
okay,
yeah,
close enough. You know, like, quite frankly, from my perspective, it's like, okay, you put that person in a lane in Europe or the West. Hey, if they're a competitor, maybe they compete up a little bit. Maybe they have more in the tank and they're not winning by a minute in a workout, you know?
Fair question, but here's the data I'm giving you for week 1 between Europe and South America. Emily Lundberg went week 1.
Mm-hmm.
Victoria Campos went week 3. All right?
Good point.
She would have gotten 3rd in her week 1 scores, and I gave her half the place she would have finished with her time from Europe in event 1.
Yeah.
I docked her time, and she still would have gotten 3rd. Victoria Campos would have gotten 14th with 3 weeks more prep for that semifinal. So yes, there is that competitive. If I'm going faster and someone's next to me, maybe that'll help. But now we're talking about records getting smashed in week 3 just because they've had more time. They've got to see people do. This is setting yourself up for the most failure possible by week 1 and the week 3. And it's still those massive extremes. So no, it was not correct. The data shows that it wasn't correct. I don't think there should be more spots. I just think don't punt to more spots. Let's improve the system first. If the system gets improved and then maybe the data shows that we could do more spots and maybe have a cut, I'm cool with that, right? I didn't mean to poo-poo it right off the beginning, but don't say, hey, let's just move the goalposts. How about we fix the goalposts first and then see if we need to move them second?
4 points for Chase. With With this idea of fixing the system as it is, do we need to start at scratch, or are there tangible ways that we can build off to something that we already have that doesn't completely change the structure of the system or add all of this chaos that we arguably keep adding for athletes, coaches, people in the space?
Well, I
It's
like the change
literally
that they
go
had
ahead.
this year. Sorry, O'Keefe, you go. I've been
You go.
talking for
No, go.
3 minutes.
No, I want to hear. I want to hear from you.
I
You're on a
really
heater.
do like the change that yeah, I'm a bit. I've had too much coffee and I haven't eaten today, so my apologies if I'm a little wired, everybody. Okay. I love the change that they had of what they should have done when they first brought the strength of field system is remove team athletes and retired athletes out of the top 100 who are not competing in person. That was the correct move to do. That was an improvement on the system they had. The problem is that when you implement this system midway through, right? All that happened was they took all the athletes that did well, that went team or retired out, and all of these smaller regions who their top athletes don't go team and they don't retire, just moved up. They didn't perform better and moved up. They just got moved up because they moved people out and they got more spots because of it. I don't think this will be the same thing, but it's going to be hard to reverse because now these more spots that they're going to get 4 times the amount of points at the games for being last are not going to be able to get removed because there's going to be so much turnover at the top again, right? So yeah, maybe we do need to start from scratch and just do a reset. Keep the system maybe what they have because they wanted to do this for a couple years to flash out with this 2-year look back, but it's just hard to do. And maybe the best thing is to just hit the reset button after this year or maybe with this year and go from there.
Doesn't it speak to, and you can look at this in other sports because there's no, take golf for instance, is a bunch of people are doing a bunch of things to earn points to get to a final, and there's just events that you can do that at, and it's got nothing to do with where you live. A point system could be a first step. I mean, world rankings are important. I think it can then establish a better baseline for how we might go about that. I mean, all those things you're saying are so spot on. I think if we have a true annualized point system, I think we can eliminate regions. Quite frankly, we can just contribute through participation. You might see the same athletes participating multiple times at events that contribute to the games. I don't know. I think that piece to me sticks out in this is an annualized point system where you accumulate points to go to the CrossFit Games is the answer.
But I think that goes to a much bigger conversation, which is about professionalizing the sport, a real season with multiple events, tiered system, pro cards, all those things that we've talked about before. Of course, that's where I want to go. And then it solves this issue because then you've got, worldwide rankings based on people actually participating on in-person events, around the world, which I think is where we need to go. But we're not there. We're far away from there right now.
Yeah, that's like a season change, not a system.
Correct. That's a whole structure change.
Might be something that could need to happen, but yeah, that would be like a death by episode of one question only.
That's so true.
We could do that. There's room for that. But without getting too far into the weeds of it, I didn't add it as a question for death by yet because the equation hasn't been released. But did all of you see that the Rogue Invitational qualifying system had changed? Okay, we won't get too deep into it, but what are our thoughts on that from what we know so far?
Yeah.
and Bill responded.
Oh,
oh yeah. Yeah.
Share it here for
oh no,
I
just didn't. I'm not a fan of it at all. I think 5 years of history. I mean, you talk about people who aren't even relevant in the sport, haven't competed in a few years, who are on the list, like in the top 10. And then you look at some of the best athletes in the sport who've only been around for 2 years, and they're way back. It's a flawed system, but he responded that, listen, this is the beta version, and instead of trashing it, why don't you send me your thoughts? And he was right. I was like, yep, you're right, Bill. Fair point, and I'll send you my thoughts. But taking one look at it, and you can go read the comments from Alyssa Fuliano, Abby Domit, Dallin Pepper, all these people who are very relevant right now in the sport and who are way down on the list. And then you look in the top 10 at retired athletes or athletes who haven't competed in the last few years, and they're in the top 10. You're like, what's going on here? So it's beta version. And I'm assuming they're going to listen to what people are saying and they're going to reevaluate. And then obviously they'll come up with a system. The cool thing that I think they did is at least releasing it now, everybody can get a look at it. And then, people can poke holes in it. They kind of sound like that's exactly what they want you to do, which is great. And the fact that I responded that way and immediately got a response from Bill, and then I, of course, was like, listen, Bill, that's a very fair point, and I will. And he was like, thank you, Justin. And that was it was just an adult conversation, and there was communication there, which is great. The problem on the CrossFit side is when we poke holes in it, it's crickets. We don't hear anything. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit different in that regard, but yeah, right now, I think obviously when you take a look at the Rogue system, there's a lot of things that need to be fixed in it, and there will be.
Holes or not, like, I absolutely adore that they're doing that, to be honest with you. I understand, and what you just said is the point. Bill and Katie are incredible to they take feedback. They want to, polish things and have them be the best. I mean, honestly, and I'm privy to this, I don't know that there's anybody as passionate about the sport as him, and the evolution and stability of it. And I think that's what you're seeing with that is Rogue, Invitational, and Bill are putting forth what I think they think is an awesome solution for our sport forward, and are willing to say, shoot holes in it and tell me how this can get better. It's just a great step, and I think it's proof of a step I think we can all take to look at how we look at the season. And again, I agree. I haven't dove insanely deep into it, but he's even identified it. I'm sure there's things that need to be tweaked here, and he told you that, and he's told me that. So, I mean, it's like, I just love that he's putting it out and trying to get this right. Like, for me, and then taking feedback and collaborating. I can't say enough good things about those guys, and people will think I'm kissing their ass, and I'm not. It's just they're collaborative, and they want the sport to evolve, and they're showing, they're putting their money where their mouth is at this point.
Okay, let's move on to topic number 2. It actually was going to be topic number 3, but I feel like we're already kind of talking about it in a passive way. A handful of noteworthy names that they won't show up at the games this year: Amanda Barnhart, Fisa Goffey, Colton Mertens, Yona Koski, Jack Farlow, just to name a few. This makes me wonder, should we bring back the Last Chance Qualifier? If so, in the same or a different way? We'll start with O'Keefe for this round.
No. Yeah. I mean, I think the way we have the season laid, like this, we need to continue to stick with a path. As I say that we should come to the point, like, we've got to, Last Chance Qualifier, to me, I didn't like it then. So, I might be off on this. I'd love to hear from these guys, but
you're right.
We don't need another event. We don't need another video event, an at-home event. Yeah, you could assign a spot to somebody that you take the scores and aggregate to do that. But what are we doing? Just give the spots to these places, have them compete on the floor. All these things we're talking about, the theory around points and world rankings, we don't have people next to each other racing. We need more of that. So no.
Does everybody agree with that?
Can we just do a gentleman's 1-point agreement that we're all saying absolutely not? Because I don't want to try to out know anybody right here.
No, please, God, no, not another.
I'll just say this: if you want to ruin semifinals, please bring back the Last Chance.
Correct. You didn't do well enough in semis, but do over.
Did you like the drama of people, of the highs and lows of people dropping dumbbells? You know what happens when you have a Last Chance Qualifier? Is like, oh yeah, they did it, but there's a Last Chance Qualifier.
Yeah.
Right. That was one of the. I'm so glad they scrapped that, because that was one of the worst,
awful
things they had done for the season.
Terrible. Totally.
Okay.
I mean, a more relevant question to that is, it's because I think we all agree on that is the one before that you were going to suggest about the order of events, but like that, yeah, we don't need to belabor the last chance qualifier thing.
Okay, then we will give the gentleman's agreement of 1 point for each person. Sean's in the back, though. He had an idea the other day. I don't know if you want to pop on and give your idea of bringing people in person. Sean, maybe he's thinking about coming on. There it is.
Yeah. So we were talking about this. I think Tommy and I were kicking this around. Like, what if you took the people you took a certain amount? I don't know. You could take 10, the top 10 people based on aggregate rankings who didn't make it, and you bring them to Fort Worth, and you have 5 events or 4 events or whatever many you need 2 days before the competition starts, and that's your play-in game, like the NCAA tournament. So there's 2 spots available. Top 2 from that group go on. But they have a disadvantage because now they've already done 4 events, but they get a day off. So if you're going to do it, that's the way I would do it.
Would they want to?
No.
Just
they probably would.
If you were going to do
Olivia Kersetter is going to want to do it. You know,
yeah.
Like there's some people, but
I like that better than the last chance qualifier, but I still feel like here's the deal.
If you made me pick between one,
right?
I'll go with that one.
But here's the deal. Like again, I just feel like everybody starts on an even playing ground at the beginning of semifinals. Like you're at your semifinal, you're competing against everybody else. Here's the deal. If you make it, you make it. If you don't make it, you don't. If you were sick or you got hurt or whatever, I hate to say this, it sucks, but I'm sorry for that year. You don't make it. That's just the way it goes, man. That's part of the deal. It's part of sports. Sometimes that happens. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, they didn't make it. I don't see any reason why they should have a chance to make it again. It just like it devalues the importance of semifinals. Now that again lends itself more to kind of where we went before with having a season in different events where you can, because then if you look at it like in golf, like maybe you're sick one weekend during a tournament, it's not that big a deal because there's so many others where you can make up points, of course, unless it's a Grand Slam event, and that is huge. But that's the one thing about this sport is it's cruel. I mean, if you were sick or you got hurt during the Open, or you're sick or you got hurt during quarters or semis, etc. I mean, look, my guy Ricky last year. Anybody who didn't think Ricky was going to be in the mix to win the games last year is crazy. But you know what? He fucking got hurt. It sucks, but that's the way it is. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, that's part of the sport.
I know this was a gentleman's agreement, but Sean, you can give Justin 2 extra points for that.
Oh my gosh.
I have a terrible idea.
Okay, let's hear the terrible idea, and then we'll move on.
You take the top 2 men and women that are out, and you make them a team, and you put them in the team competition.
I mean,
that's actually funny. The other thing you could do is toss,
I like that.
You could take, say in the regions that it was 9, it's like 10, 11, 12, and then have the last week be like Asia and South America and send them down there and see how they stack up with those groups. No, but you could. I mean, if people are concerned about how spots are to distribute it, it's like, okay, well, we're going to send some of the North American and European wood down there and see how you guys stack up against them. I mean, in the end, one of the things
on the semifinals more. Here's our trash. Good luck beating them.
But I do think that people should, answer. You got to answer this question: is like, are we missing someone that is going to factor in the competition at the CrossFit Games at this point?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Let's be honest. Colton Mertens and Olivia Kerstetter could win multiple events at the games, like any year, at any time. There's no doubt about that.
You don't think Yona Koski is going to do something? Could have done like dude got 6 last year?
Yeah.
Right. And he sucked at semifinals this year.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. Yeah. And unfortunately, the way that again, that's the cruel part of our sport at the moment. But here's the deal: like the people that made it. And they were, those people that made it were better than those people that we're discussing throughout the entire test, right? And it's just the way that that's the way that it stacked up. And here's the deal: I adore some of those athletes that didn't make it, but I promise you right now, not one of them was going to win the CrossFit Games. And at the end of the day, what are we trying to find? We're trying to find the fittest male and female in the world. And you will absolutely get the fittest male and the female out of the field that's going to Texas. And the people that are staying home would not have factored into those the top person. That's just the bottom line. Because you're not making the games if you're the fittest person in the world.
And it's like this whole thing of people say we need to professionalize the sport will totally like embarrass what the sport of CrossFit is by putting all these equity loopholes in here just because we like these people and they didn't make, like, that's the best thing of sports when there's upsets in the playoffs. That's it. Did they make the playoffs? Did they not? Most people get in the playoffs and nobody cares. But come playoff time, which is what semifinals is, it's the best part of any sport in the world. Pick one, it's the best. It's rarely the championship game. The Final Four is way more intense than the national championship. The Super Bowl is celebrating like two good teams that made it, but the NFC and AFC championship games are the best things. Like, you want to ruin sports, then give everybody like little passes or participations. Like, hey, I know you didn't do well, but like, here's a alternative path because what? We like you or you're one of our favorites. Like, if you want to ruin the sport, by all means, give other paths to the CrossFit.
Lauren, what you're dealing with here is you're dealing with three OGs who all come from the camp of not everybody gets a fucking trophy. Like, that's
hey, I'm in that camp too.
You know?
I don't think that everybody should get a trophy.
You know, and that's not saying that
I hated getting a merit award when I was.
Some of these athletes are savages. They're savages. I'm not saying that, but you know what? At the end of the day, the people that made it to the games are going, and that's the way it is.
Nobody knows what seed, the NBA champion was in the regular season, or some of the best sports stories are NC State with Jimmy Valvano, who was an underdog, winning the national championship. You don't know that they weren't a 1 seed in the East, West, South. Couldn't agree more. It's sports. Let's play the games. Winner goes on, and let's not give everybody 50 different shots to back their way into things.
Okay, no, we don't want to bring back the last chance qualifier. Let's move on to topic number 3. Does the order of the workouts matter? If the order was changed, flip-flopped, just thrown into a barrel and you pick them out in order, would it have changed to qualified? Chase Ingraham, we're starting the last topic with you until we get to bonus round.
The short answer to this is yes, because if you change something, things will change. But I want to dive into why it's a bit of a theoretical no a bit more, because I think that's just an easy way out. When you look at event 1, it was massive on running. If you were to move event 1 in the middle or at the end, the good runners will just be better and the bad ones will just be worse. So the outcome necessarily isn't going to change. Things do, but not maybe as swings as you think. In event 2, just the high volume squatting. Could you handle the barbell? Same thing. If you put it later in the weekend, even the great squatters are going to do better and the bad squatters are going to do worse because they're more fatigued. So barely any change there. On event 3, for the dudes, it's the bike and the box jump overs. For the ladies, it's chicks. Then I did. All right. And is the rope climbs. No change. The guys might do better because they're not leg fatigued from the run and the squats. So even then, the best bikers and jumpers are going to do better. So it's more of like, if you were good and you move the events around, you're just going to be better. If you were bad, you were just going to be worse. At best, no change. So yes, would the events change the outcome? For some, maybe more of the bottom 1 or 2 spots because of the way things shaked out. But at the end of the day, moving these particular events around and the way linchpin parts of each one, no, the good will be better and the bad will be worse.
3 points for Chase Cotler.
Yeah, I'm going to say that it would, but for a different reason. I agree with Chase in a lot of what he talked about, but I'm going to go a little bit more from the almost mental and emotional perspective. There's an energy that you get when things are going well. Like, it's just natural, right? Like, you could see it in specific circumstances where an athlete wins a specific event and they are there beating their chest and everyone else looks like they're dying, right? Like, well, they put forth the same effort. It's just that there's an energy, there's an adrenaline rush, there's a vibe that comes from winning or doing well. Now, obviously, there were some exceptions. We saw somebody like Olivia Kerstetter who started off tough and then murdered the final day. A lot of that just comes with the fact that she was by far the best at that snatch ladder in the world. Like there was nobody even close. But in general, I think that there's an energy, there's a momentum that comes from doing well. And if you had started that snatch ladder first, as opposed to last, who's to say that that energy that she felt on that event wouldn't have got her maybe 1 or 2 spots better in a couple of the other events, and maybe that gets her into the games. That's just one example, but I've seen it happen a lot at the games and semifinals. When things start to go badly, they continue to go badly. And when they go well, they go very well. And sometimes you outperform simply because all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, I'm in a position I've never been in before, or maybe I'm better than I even thought I was. And I think that from that perspective, that's why, it would have changed the outcome.
4 points for Cotler. Matt O'Keefe.
Yeah, I mean, you both have identified key. Like, I didn't really honestly think of, Chase, what you were talking about, which is the physical side, as to like how that would contribute to different workouts. I thought exactly what Justin is talking about from just my experience coaching, and that can go either way, right? That could be a positive or a negative. He highlighted Olivia just smashing with her back against the wall. That is an emotional, mental response often from an athlete. And then, the other side of that is, the defeatist, or the defeated mentality that you get, sometimes, acquire when you have a terrible start. So 100% these workouts laid out differently. There's a different result for both sides of that. It's a big mental play from my side. The obvious is the physical side. I think that's a more level playing field from my perspective. And, the mental is probably the hardest. And I think it's more of the spoken about, aspect. It's the most underspoken aspect of our sport. It is highly mental. Another player imposing their will on a workout, creating doubt in someone forward. Like there's so many factors to that with the arrangement of the workouts. I will say, I think they absolutely nailed the 1, 2, 3. It puts them on the physical side, speaking to Chase's point, in the best position to perform that last day with the highest volume. So you don't see that effect. That was a big day, that last day. But yeah, you lay these out differently, in a different order. Different people are confident, or they're different people backs against the walls, probably, overperforming in their desperation. So, 100% it's a different look.
3 points for O'Keefe. Let's now move into our bonus round. We've been talking about like the biggest moment from each semifinal, but I want to reverse it. What are some of the most overlooked moments from all 3 weeks that really nobody has spoke about, or maybe not as much as others? Cotler, we'll start with you.
Well, I'm probably going to lose because I'm going to go on party lines here. But the most overlooked moment from semifinals, I just can't believe people didn't talk about it more. Like Ricky's performance in workout 1 compared to the rest of the field in Oceania. I mean, with guys who are, top, a couple of guys are, arguably top 10 in the world, and Bailey and Jay, obviously other guys that, I mean, you're talking about running, which most, there's a lot of good runners that maybe didn't do well at semifinals, but who are great runners. If anyone watched that workout, you are essentially talking about if you were running a 4K on the track, Ricky wins by 400 meters, like an entire lap. There was no one in the building after he was done. It was the most dominant. Now, Olivia's was incredible, but Ricky's was equally incredible. And no one is talking about it because it's Oceania and not anyone was watching on that first day. And there's a lot of things that have happened since then. But I think that performance was so ridiculous, and I can't believe it didn't get more attention. And to me, that's one of the most overlooked moments of semifinals.
But I thought it's because we can't compare event 1
It doesn't matter. You can still compare
To the
what they
field.
look like to the rest of the field.
to the field.
field.
Okay.
Yes. I mean,
Fair.
Jeff was amazing, but Roman was on his ass, and there were several other people within 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Ricky beat the next closest guy by a minute and a half. Like, Teal was amazing. Haley was 13 seconds behind her. Like, there was somebody there in each region. What Ricky did to that field was hilarious. I mean, I even for me, I didn't expect that. I don't think he did either. But I just thought it was one of those performances that you watch. It was like Secretariat at Belmont. Like, it's just one of those performances you watch and you're just like, what the hell is going on? Like, did everybody else just not lace up their shoes today? It was pretty awesome to watch.
I'll still give you 3 points, Cotler. It's okay to stay on party lines.
Thanks.
Incredible moment that nobody has talked about until right now. Now I'm going to go back and watch it. So thank you. Matt O'Keefe.
Not going to toe my party line here, Justin. So
Oh,
we're
you learned
step
from
outside the box a
my
little bit.
last win. Yes, it's smart.
10-pointer.
It's people. I think that, I think we're overall talking about these stories and pockets, but look at I think both sides, first of all, let's identify that the CrossFit Games, CrossFit as a sport is becoming more and more razor thin. The talent field's deep. We're talking about it. Some of the people that are really good at this aren't getting to the games. And this blend of new talent and old talent, which I really want to talk about, legacy talent, they just, keep standing at the top of the sport. And I think it's just underspoken about it. You see these guys going back over and over and over again. And it's so impressive because it's so competitive. And my specific point would be Cole Sager, 11 straight CrossFit Games. I mean, that is insane. He has been around forever. And the way he does it is, heart attack, he's the cardiac kid, but he finds a way and has stayed relevant in the sport for 11 straight years. It's just so impressive to me that he is still standing there, and he was so long ago when the sport was just evolving. That to me is crazy cool as this game gets tighter and thinner. These guys are still at the top and they're sharp. Cole Sager, 11 in a row. I remember us sitting with Matt this past weekend, and we were talking about this, and he's like, 11 CrossFit Games. He's like, oh my God, like I can't even fathom having done that long and, ground that long on something, and then to be that relevant that long. So to me, I think it's underspoken about. I think that's so impressive to stay relevant that long in a sport like this that's so physically demanding and mentally, for that matter.
BKG also 11.
BKG, I'm sorry, I totally, he's equally, and not in my camp. So there we go. No party lines. But the both of them, that's in, I remember both their first CrossFit Games. I mean, it's wild to me that they're still not only going, but relevant.
5 points for going outside party lines. Good job, O'Keefe.
There you go, buddy. Good job.
Chase, what is your overlooked moment?
Oh, I wanted to look at the question you posed to us a couple weeks ago. Is it going to be the rookie's year at the CrossFit Games season? And my answer was unequivocally no. And I was right for the most part, except for what I thought was really fascinating was
Chase doesn't like to
Europe.
win.
What's that?
I said, you don't like to win, do you?
I was right.
I was right. Yeah. I was just answering your question. I didn't say you were right.
You were.
Everybody else was wrong. But what I thought was amazing was, except for Europe. And in Europe, where other semifinals maybe had like one male and two female rookies making the CrossFit Games in the West, and the opposite in the East, right? One or two at the most. In Europe, which is what we're heralding as one of the semifinals that got robbed as far as spot allocations, not only did a couple things, their fans showed up and showed out and proved that Europe is ready and has earned a CrossFit Games to come overseas. But even more so is that next year, they may get the spots that they have 100% earned because they had 4 individual male rookies in the top 10 qualifying for the CrossFit Games. And they would have had 5 if Boss Hard didn't get basically dead effing last in the last event that let Mortz Feibig get in for spot number 10. On the women's side, they had 3 in the top 10 in arguably one of the deepest female regions in the world. And then in 11th and 12th were 2 more rookie females. There are 5 and 5 on the inside of the top 12 that are just rookie athletes that could have been going to the CrossFit Games. So not only is Europe one of the better regions in the entire world, not only do they deserve more spots, which everybody says, and they're ready for the CrossFit Games to be there one day, but they are going to be so much more dangerous next year because the rookies showed out. And why? I think it wasn't the programming, because I think the programming favored vets who had time to prep. But the vets that didn't have time in week 1, they got outshined by a bunch of rookies in Europe. And nobody's talking about that little detail as far as the programming, the vets, and how good Europe really is. Because they're not just top heavy now, but the field is getting deeper. And they showed it this year.
So what do you think would have happened, Chase, if Europe was week 3? Results different or the same?
Yeah, I think more vets would be in the top 10 than there were for the rookies, because not only were this programming was just classic hardcore CrossFit to its core, which I thought was absolutely beautiful. And it was so nice to get back to just that kind of things where, as Dave says, is like, I want the athletes to make the stories, not pirouettes, leg seated rope climbs in a carpet sled that screwed up everybody at semifinals. I want to see stories and athletes, and we got that. 1 point misses week in and week out, just 5 point. Like, there was just so much moving. And I'll tell you what, 3 individual events on day 1 by them was by far the best idea they have ever had in the history of regionals, because it was individual event, back to back to back. And the way it was programmed, everything was just on the edge of your seat exciting. So not only is Europe just like on the rise at an exponential level, the programming on the last day of competition with only individuals, I thought was the greatest thing they have ever done in regionals and semifinals history.
Wow.
My opinion.
Wow.
Cool.
Did y'all not feel that way? Like day 3, you're like, this is the best day
I love it.
I have ever had in my life.
Fairly
It was
nerve-wracking.
definitely. I think it was program.
As a fan, and
Yeah.
probably for the athletes. Well, maybe not. I don't know.
It's half the competition. I mean, 300 points in the final day is,
Dude.
That's a lot.
Talk
For
about like
semis.
a real moving day.
Yeah.
Right. And the variance of the programming too, where there was no room for error. You couldn't miss a lift or you're out. You couldn't go slow on a handstand walk or a 2-second rope pace slower or you're out. And if you drop those dumbbells once, good luck. It was one of the most exciting, just single day of competition I've watched in a decade.
It was exciting.
It's fantastic.
It was great.
As
3
a fan.
points for Chase. That means, Sean, we have to go to you because we have a tie. Not between Chase and somebody else, but between.
Gotta give it
Cotler
to
and
O'Keefe.
O'Keefe.
I don't think he's ever won.
I think we'll give it to Keith. I'm disappointed because I wanted to give it to Chase because of the passion he was bringing. I'm like, oh man, what does he got prepared for the end here?
I feel like no, I can read into Chase's brain. He knew he wasn't going to win, so he gave his podium pedestal within that last answer. Is that true? Because that's kind of how it felt.
No.
No,
Oh.
he's like, no, I got more.
Never
Are you
I don't
kidding
have
me?
to plan my
I got-
podium speeches.
I got
can
more.
Can I give it to O'Keefe? And if like O'Keefe needs a tag out, we can tag Chase in.
Yeah. I'm going to defer my
I'll
comments
just
to
put the
Chase.
buzzer button, and it was.
I
Okay.
have Justin won one other time. So
Oh,
this is
okay,
number 2.
sorry.
Okay.
Two, we
I know
love it.
this. Yeah.
Go for it.
Neither of us have won a whole lot since we've been locked in with Chase here. But I would say
I got
you
like
know,
6 or 7 wins. Come on now. I got
I
like
must
a
have
half
been
a
absent.
dozen.
I
Don't
must
loop
have
me.
been
Don't
absent for
loop me in with you, okay?
Those
buddy?
must be my weeks. Those were
Don't
my
loop
weeks
Justin
off.
in with me. It's like from
That's
Justin to Matt is Justin to me. Like let's be honest
probably
here.
true.
Isn't this the point at which, you know, in around the horn that they freeze these two and
They
shut
mute
them up?
us. Yeah, there you go.
I'd say, you know, I was in Knoxville the last weekend here, in this. I want to talk about the guys' side of the games competition. It's not to not talk about the girls' side because it's equally as interesting. But you know, coming out of Knoxville, I'm so charged up. What I think we saw go on there with the competitiveness with that last heat, and you know the shit talking, and you know even the antics on the floor. I loved watching it, and they were competing. You know, there's so much conversation in our sport around stay in your lane, be yourself, do your thing. And yeah, I understand that we're dealing with fitness and, you know, capacity, but man, like Jason Hopper missing 2 snatches, you know, trying to beat Roman at the end, like I loved it. And I'm on his team in his camp and he failed. And it was calculated and it was an attempt to race and win. And we need more of that. And just the you know, the relationship they all have, which is pretty good overall, but their willingness to, like, you know, put themselves out and talk shit with each other, you know, Dallin finishing, you know, in a celebratory way and staring down Roman on his walk by. I mean, the games is going to be very interesting on the guys' side. You know, you throw Ricky in the mix, you know, Pat, you know, this is going to be haymaker central, and the mental, you know, verbal stuff's going to happen all week, during, after, lead up. We're going to get entertained in August by the guys, and I get chills right now thinking about it. And honestly, we all think our guys have a chance to win that we're associated with. I think if we're real honest, it's open and it's going to be wild to watch. And who's going to win, we don't know on that side of the ball. And it's going to be all those little factors we watched in Knoxville are going to contribute. So I had a great weekend watching that. It was one of the better competitive weekends I've watched.
It's funny because that was exactly what my 30 seconds were going to be about.
So cool.
It was
Great minds.
how competitive the men's side. It's the best that I think the sport's ever been, parity wise, on the men's side. We've got 7 to 8 athletes who can win the CrossFit Games, legitimately 7 to 8 in the world. It's, I mean, I don't think we've ever.
When that happens too, that opens up the opportunity for others to contribute at the high end. You know, you start to have a lot of, you know, opportunity with 8 to 10 guys to win. So now some other guys can sneak into the mix there because, you know, they're throwing, you know, haymakers at each other. There's a lot of, you know, movement on the leaderboard. Who knows what's going to happen? I think it's going to be badass, man. It really is.
Someone agreed.
Chase didn't agree.
Bing.
No, yeah. That was a great 30 seconds.
That is true. I agree.
That was the best thing you said today.
Don't mock me. Don't mock me.
No, like, dude, the coldest two of my favorite moments of the weekend was when Roman was talking shit to Dallin in that post interview. And then as soon as right for the walk off, Dallin grabs the mic. He's like, there's one more Echo Bike event, homie.
Yeah. Oh, that was
and
great.
then he beats his ass, yells at the crowd, drops the dumbbells, and then points at Roman walking across. We have been begging for something like this since 2007 with substance, right? And it's not like, oh, it's like, oh, we need a villain. It's like, no, we just need people to just freaking jaw.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Jaw with each other, talk, but back it up. And like, it was, that was good.
You also needed parity for that, quite frankly, because if you're a realist, you're not talking shit to Matt Fraser or Rich Froning. Like you weren't, there was nothing to talk about at that point.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, truthfully,
was Tommy Hackenbrook in 2014. When
I
like
remember,
he was coming at Rich, but he was backing up for a couple of days. Yeah. And then, you know,
Rich overhead squat event where he's like looking across and pointing and stuff. Yeah.
Like even leading up to it, guys, everyone's like, oh, you know, Rich is getting, and he's like, screw that. Like, screw Rich Froning. Like, I'm like, Tommy Hackenbrook, I think, was the pioneer of it back in the day, but, you know, he wasn't.
But again, it's not talked about as much because no one was watching it because it was late at night. But if you go back and watch the Oceania, I'm saying North America East had that vibe. Oceania, Ricky Jay and Bailey all weekend. like that, throwing haymakers, talking shit, like Ricky beating Bailey by like a half a second on the handstand walk and then looking over at him and going like this, like little things that you just love to see, but you're seeing it now in the men's division. And it's going to be hectic. It's going to be really cool to watch. I think it's wide open. And the crazy thing is they're all just so good. It's going to be really fun to watch. Yeah.
We got 2 months to hype it all up before we get there. It's always great to hang out with you three. This was a really fun episode. Way to bring the good conversation. Thanks for tuning in. And Garmin, thanks to our sponsor. You can get the link in our description, and we will see you all next time.
Heart rate's like 180.
He's fired up. Fired up.